Before we go any further, I want to show a little bit more in depth about this layers panel because we're going to be using it frequently in this course. So if we go to new and just set up how many pixels you want your file to be, we'll say 2000 pixels by 2000 pixels. That's a decent size, not huge. You can also set it up by inches. So if you want something that is 12 inches by 12 inches at 300 dpi, which is like photograph quality, then you can also set it up like that, and this will actually tell you how many pixels that would be. So 300 obviously times 12, 3600 by 3600. So we'll make it this size actually, 3600 pixels by 3600 pixels, just so that we know if we want to print at 12 inches by 12 inches, the quality is going to be very high. The resolution is going to be very high. So, new project. And you can see that sets up a background layer for us. The background is a little bit unique. Can't do all the same things that other layers can do. So I almost always just leave it there and create a new layer on top of it. Only one new layer on top of it. Now, if I start painting, and this might be very basic to some of you, if you hit this button here now, notice I painted on layer 1. If I hit this button here, that gives us a new layer. Pick a different color. And we're now painting on layer 2, and that gives us the control to turn up and down the opacity of that layer. We could adjust just the color of layer 2, like that. So using this layers panel gives us the freedom to move forward without worrying about having to clean up our mistakes later, because if we use a lot of layers, we can just say, I don't like this layer, I don't like what I just did, turn it off, start a new layer. So that is one huge advantage to digital painting versus traditional painting. You can set up layers and you can go backwards. That means that digital painting is a lot more forgiving. A couple other things about layers that are unique. We can set their blending types to different things. So right now it's blending normally. We can blend it to dissolve, darken, multiply, color burn, linear burn, lighten, screen. I won't go through all of these because there's a lot of them. But what I would suggest is tinkering with all these to see what kind of things they do. And I have a few that I use a lot more often than others, like linear dodge and overlay and multiply. I use those very regularly. Again, you can also change the opacity. Let's set this back to normal. So that's another bit of control that layers gives you. The third thing that it gives you is masks. If you hit this button here, this creates a new mask for your layer. I meant to create one. There we go. And masks are black and white images. If you hold down Alt and click on your mask, you'll go into it. Right now it's solid white. You can click back to this and go back to the actual layer. But masks are just black and white images. I want to actually draw in my mask. You can see it's highlighted when I click on it. If I get a black brush as my foreground color, use the brush tool, and then paint in that mask, set my opacity to 100. We'll go into all of this in more depth as we go through and make our painting. But you can see, wherever I paint black on the mask, layer 2 or layer 3 will not show up. That's what my mask looks like. If I paint white back into that mask, layer 3 will come back. So it's almost like erasing, except you can go back. You can go backwards if you want. So again, Layers enable digital painting to be much more forgiving than traditional painting. Blending modes and masks we'll talk about more as we go forward with our painting. The last thing I want to talk about here is one other tool panel, and it's this one, the Tool Presets. Windows, Tool Presets. Or just hit this icon here if it's open for you. Tool Presets make it so that we can set up a custom brush, which we'll talk about later, and then once we get all the settings just right in our custom brush, we can create a new tool preset and call it whatever we want, Adams Custom Brush. We can choose to include our foreground color or not. Right now it's just white. I don't really want that. Okay. Now I can, whatever settings I set on that custom brush will come up every time I click on Adams Custom Brush. So there's actually a few default ones that come in here. Airbrush Round. I like this transparent red spray paint. So let's set up a new layer. We'll actually set this to red and start spray painting. So you can see that's a custom brush that's made to look just like spray paint. And every time I click on that tool preset, this is what I'll get. So keep that in mind. We'll go into it more as we go along. But remember, tool presets and the layers panel, both very important for the course.